Hey, Phoenixes are rising. Coach T here. And before we get into this podcast, I want to remind you that March 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, really, it'll be Arizona time. So clock that. From Sealed to Healed will be live on Google Meets. We're going to go for about 2 hours. And look, I understand a lot of people have a hard time right now, and it's only $97. There's a link that you can copy and paste in the description, and let's get into it. So I want to preface this podcast right now by saying that this was brought on. I have moved and I'm in my 7th month. And within the first 3 months, the management decided that they wanted to label me as a racist. And they also wanted to insinuate that maybe I had some sexual predator inclinations. I think it was in the 3rd or 4th month that their staff, groundskeeper, male groundskeepers, decided that for some reason that they wanted to try and, exhibit microaggressions. And which basically I would go to a certain spot when I would walk my girls, like we, do the lap around. I got a stroller. I have a handicapped fur baby. I have my granddaughter, my grand fur baby is on a leash. She's great, right? We stay out of people's way to the best of our ability. Mind you, I am unthawing. I am supposed to be in healing mode. And so sometimes, especially when you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you're not always going to be able to control your outbursts or that is brought on by a trigger. Okay. A trigger can be, for me at least, it can be somebody coming too close to me, somebody coming too close to my babies, and I can't catch them in time. I have had my fur babies be abused to where they were unalived. I have had myself be abused, of course, and so this move was supposed to be my quiet time, my healing time. And when I first got here, I didn't say a thing. Sometimes to people who I felt safe with, I would say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Do a little bit of small talk, keep it pushing. That's it. Right? Some of it was practice. Some of it too was just, I yearned to one day have full-on conversations and have it be the way that it is. Even as a transformational coach, it's like my circle is little to none as far as who I allow in, right? And that's common when you are just getting out of a relationship with a cluster B personality. And it can be a relationship of any type because they believe that they're in a relationship with you doesn't mean that you were really in a relationship with them, but just to save people looking at you funny and cocking their head and saying, "Oh, you must be 5150." We'll just say that. But so, I have had racial slurs since I've been here. I have I have responded, retaliated is a good word too. I have just to be transparent, I have responded with racial slurs. I will match your energy, especially if I'm already triggered. I just left a whole entire state that tried to take me out, no matter whether I was in the north or in the south. I thought that here it would be a little bit more friendly. And what I found, because I was in a new state, I am, and was conscious. Many of us are overly conscious of not making the same mistake to the point of where we shut everybody out and down. Because I'm trying to process everything for me over the last 10 to 15 years of trauma and drama and, fight, flight, and freeze. So I don't make any apologies for what I am going through. It does not mean that I go after people because of what I went through. Okay. I did come here with a clean slate to this new state. I came with a clean slate. The first thing that I noticed from the management is that they could not help but treat me like I was inferior. And you know how you go somewhere, nobody's saying anything. See, coercive control is I don't have to say anything to you. I can project a threat. I don't have to say anything to you. Coercive controls, pardon me, coercive control is projection. It's insidious. It's so subtle. It rides on a breeze. That's what makes it so harsh, is because it's coercion and only you know what is going on. And that's why a lot of people don't want to say anything, because it has laced with it, right? It has laced with it. If you do tell anybody, they're going to think you're insane because I can put on a happy face. Dig it? But the reaction, right? When you know that you have been, that there is microaggression, when you know that there is a threat that there shouldn't be, and you respond to it because your nervous system is done. Like it's been kaput. Mine has been kaput. And I have told, in my meditation, I told the Most High this. It's like, we got to go. And we stayed too long in Southern California in the first place, right? I was supposed to go after a year. Like that was, and it would not have been better. If I would have stayed a third year, I would not be here today because of the environment that I was in. And I would have died in silence because here I am, a fat Black lesbian, middle-aged, that people can't wait to stereotype, can't wait to take out their bitterness and aggression, sexual or physical, even if it is coming from an imagination, on us. Because that's what has been taught lately. That's what, in my meditation, that's what was brought up, is that people have learned through gang stalking, mind you, through gang stalking tactics. Because that's what this Greenwater, this apartment complex, the company, is doing. You're gang stalking very quietly, very subtly. It's coercive. It's meant to erode any form of safety, right? So when you do react, you look like the crazy one all around, but you know what happened, but you can say it. But people already, because it's been done so many times, also, whether you get some people who believe you, but they don't want to say anything because they don't want to go outside the norm, because why not? Why should they? You know, why should they? That's how a lot of people think, you know? A lot of people think that, hey, I'm not going to go out on a limb for you because everything is transactional. Gang stalking created a safe haven for cluster B personalities and their flying monkeys to create a sorority and long-lasting relationships based off of how well that they can abuse their targets sexually, physically, financially, emotionally, socially. I had a whole city after me because I did not I survived. You dig it? I survived. I had kids who were doing, taking uh, cues from their parents. It's the worst thing that I have ever gone through in my whole entire life. Mine started when I was in my mid-20s. That was my world changed. I had no idea why the hell everything was changing. No idea whatsoever. No idea. So moving here, They used the same tactics. So they got a place that I moved to. And I had facilitated a session on healing from narcissistic abuse. And we were all livid, all of us. There was like 4 of us in this session. And one person has said it's like a virus. It's like psychopathy, narcissism, etc. is like a virus. And I have to agree that because gang stalking opened that door. Gang stalking after 9/11, in America, it happened because of course, because of 9/11 and whistleblowers and, this version of this coming out and this truth coming out. And, people were trying to, um, uh, quiet everybody down. And then people realize, like with every toxic thing, for example, when we learn a language, we all want to know anything that has to do with sex and cussing, right? So people believed that, okay, so we can all use these tactics. We can all get an extra paycheck or a gift card, whatever, that some are saying that was happening. And me personally, I just believe that it's a whole bunch of bitter, nasty people who have narcissistic characteristics or are actually cluster B personalities who literally got together and decided that, because monkey see, monkey do, we mirror, right? But see, as a human, I get the choice to mirror back to me, back to myself, better qualities than what I started out with, right? I didn't mirror my dad's sociopathy, right? I didn't mirror his being a pedophile. But I've been accused all my life, right? And I know where that comes from now, though. That comes from other people saying, "How dare you?" Just like when you get blessed with something, let's say that you get extra money that you didn't know was coming at the right time, and people are saying, "Oh gosh, how come you get it?" Right? Or you get an opportunity in the entertainment business, whether it be an actor or actress, whatever, and people say, "Well, how come you got that?" Right? And so people don't understand, like, well, okay, this is what we're taught. They put laws and restrictions on us by age, we're always being measured. Well, by this time to this time, you should be this. And when we're not, people, and whether it's good or bad, people are like, okay, well, what happened, right? Well, I grew up in the urban, the streets, the city, poverty. I think we were kind of middle class to poverty, and why I had a teacher, and I've shared this before. I had a teacher, I think it was like kindergarten, preschool, or whatever, because at that time, this is how I was saying. Sometimes seeing a psychologist is does more damage than it does good, because you're basically a guinea pig, especially if you are a Black person. You are a guinea pig. So they had this theory that people, kids who grow up in certain areas, they draw, stick figures, trees, the burying trees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here I'm drawing this lushful, green, vibrant, healthy tree. And I remember this lady, she had kind of, Asperger eyes, and she they glazed over, like, they went dark all of a sudden. And I know it's called something, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just don't know. Please put it in the comments what it is. But she was infuriated by and she just looked at me like with indignation, like, why would you do that, right? So a lot of people will call you something or accuse you of something because you didn't get infected by what they got infected by, right? So when I got here, they did the same thing. And I mean, because I was conscious of to shut my mouth. I was really conscious to shut my mouth, really conscious. I said, all I want to do here is rest. And I was joking, and I thought, okay, it's quiet here. That was the first thing I noticed. It's peaceful. And I remember saying to one of the leasing agents, I said, okay, it's quiet, it's peaceful. And the reason why I was talking to this specific leasing agent was not because she was white and the other two were Mexican or Latina or whatever, or Asian. Excuse me, I still don't know to this day, because neither of them have introduced themselves. Well, excuse me, the one did. But there's a gross lack of professionalism with these women. So I was talking to the one who I had filled out the application, and of course I'm going from one state to the next, and she's the one that processed me, right? But it stopped there. Like once I got there, it was kind of like fend for yourself. I didn't realize that I was supposed to get a key card for my door, not just work from an app that was on the lease. They were supposed to do a walkthrough with me. They wanted me to do the, you see what I'm saying? They didn't. So from what I gathered, they didn't want to take responsibility. Once I had paid, that was it. Now you just fend for yourself. Okay. And I had to climb my big ass through my window. Thankfully I could, because I would have been outside and nobody was there to help me. I was asking to other tenants, hey, do you know how to call maintenance? Everybody went stonewalled me. People were like, oh, I don't know where management is. I don't know where I don't know, don't know, right? I couldn't have any information, right? But nobody knows. Okay. And it could have been valid. It may not have been valid. But one thing that I felt was isolated, and I felt a bit betrayed. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was being put through something that I didn't have to go through once again. Okay. Because of the way that other people were perceiving me, right? The last place that I had lived, they were offended because I was confident and I was laughing, and there was just all that jealousy. So I know that I have bottomed out with being around people, entities, which includes businesses, leasing, management companies, apartment complexes, stores. I'm so for working for myself and focusing on my coaching, focusing what I know that I'm good at. Right. So I was just kind of like, hey, and I started, something's told me, stop going up to the office, because every time I went up to the office too, I felt stupid as all get out. It's like I would go in there vibrant because I'd done my morning meditation. I'm great because I'm not where I was. I'm out of that abuse. I'm thinking I'm out of that abuse. I'm going to start a new life, and I'm going to start, finish where I left off. And every time I'd go into that office, I crossed the threshold and zap, I lost my self-esteem. I lost, my confidence. My throat closed, kind of felt like it was closing up. I got butterfly, my stomach got tight, my chest, and that's especially when my throat closes up, I notice that I know that that's a sign that I'm not around authentic people. And it's an entity that doesn't want me to speak. Okay. So I stopped going up there because I get tired of feeling that way. And so I started emailing them, and just tell them, hey, this is what, can you answer this for me? Okay, thank you. Right? Nothing. I got the emails. There's nothing racist. There's nothing. Okay. I think it was probably within the first 2 months being there, I noticed that people were coming out of the woodworks trying to stretch their necks to, get a look at me as a new tenant or whatever. And I wasn't going for it. Again, I just got out of a domestic violence situation, and my goal is to heal. I am not responsible for what other people's assumptions of me are, but I did notice that people uh, did not like that I was not talking to them, because I would literally just say, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in talking to you. Right? I'm on the spectrum too. Right? Like, of course, I'm going to tell you that I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm recovering. I just got to grieve the loss of prosperity when we got here, right? I've said that story. I got a video up on that, and I noticed is that, and I'll do another podcast on this, but I've noticed that people, once they get you in that, they get you in that spider web and that whirlwind, they don't want you to settle down. They want that snow globe to keep shaking for you, because they know you're one that they would not have access to. When I was homeless, they were so mad that I was getting up, that I was kept making progress, because they knew I was one that they would not have access to otherwise. So that's why they sabotage you. That's why, because they say, okay, I'm not going to have access to this person if they're in a house, if they're in an apartment, if they're safe. People were pissed off when I got into a U-Haul van. People were trying to keep me from telling my story, because how dare you get up from a place where we have using a new way of recording audio. But again, how dare you succeed? How dare me, Tennille, Coach T, succeed where they had uh, made sure that others were unalived slowly and sadistically. Okay, so I came here shutting my mouth. I came here, but within the first, again, it made people mad that I did not talk to them. They took it personal. Right now, we have to understand we are in times where people are easily offended. They are beyond easily offended. Gang stalking created was a secondary psychopath, secondary narcissist, right? I mean, there's no term for that yet, but they're out there now. And again, like, a session goer said, hey, it feels like this is a virus. And we were all thinking the same thing. We're all on the same wavelength. Like, I still have, stuff going on. So I'm trying to heal, right? I am in the process of healing, but it's hard to heal when you have the same types of people. Now, how am I supposed to know, right? That there's the same type of people. So I go into that same defense mode. Okay, because I had men who were coming for me who, again, we already know that there's incels, and there's been a season where men, and it's not just a season, this is what they do now. There are norms that shouldn't be norms. You see? There are norms that shouldn't be norms. You got people who are infringing on other people because they know that otherwise we would not be able to have access, like I said. So, probably with 2 months in, a teenager, and I could see what she was plotting, right? It was a teenager. She was with other teenagers. I seen her the night before, and she knew what apartment I was coming out of. So her lie, which she would later tell a lie to me the day that she kept knocking on my door, because she felt entitled, like it was literally like, I'm entitled to knock on your door. And I told her, I said, look here, check this out. Don't ever knock on my door as a child. You go get your parent or whatever adult you need to, and then you come and knock on my door. You don't knock on my door, then you don't talk to me as if you're entitled to my time or my energy. That's exactly what I told her. And I took a picture of her. It was actually, I got the video and I just screen captured the video because I wanted everybody to, just in case she'd pop up and say some stuff that I said something or whatever, because that's the environment that I came into. Or came from, is that reactive abuse. They set you up, and then, when you react in a certain way, then now you're the bad person, right? And I've had people use teenagers and use 5-year-olds. Like, I dare you to say something. Now I will say something because you've exhausted me. I'm quiet and you still won't let me grieve. You still won't let me heal. So yes, my nervous system has had all it's going to have. And so I do get triggered more quickly. And that's not something that's my fault. That's something that's a survival. And my nervous system is still like, we don't want to deal with this shit anymore. And we shouldn't have to. It doesn't make sense to have to. It's people making these choices. So I talked to the little girl and didn't know her race or nothing. I just assumed, I said, because she kind of looks like, because people from Filipinos. I thought maybe she was Filipino because they kind of had that, um, because of the Spanish, conquering and all that other kind of stuff. So, but there was nothing racist about it. But that's what I was accused of by the staff. And it leaked out through the groundskeepers. Now, mind you, some of these guys can't speak English. But as I'm walking my dogs, thinking that everything's okay, because I was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know I don't know this young girl, and I just moved here, and she's knocking and banging on my door repeatedly after I told her not to do so. So I don't know if I should call the police. Okay. So that was the red flag for them, was that you took a picture, you got evidence, right? As in, now all I sent was the picture. I didn't send the whole video. You took a picture. that was an infraction to them. Okay. So then, and again, when you're dealing with people who have cluster B personalities and they all get together because they're all feeding some type of ego wound, on their head, in their pocketbooks or whatever, I will say this, that I found out later through another tenant, um, that that ICE had already been here. Okay. I have nothing to do with ICE. I don't care, right? I mean, I care about the safety, and that illegals do not come in with their fetishes, especially, and sexually assault and unalive and throw away like trash young 19-year-olds like Dakara Thompson and others. Okay. And we have a right to our opinions, but this is the thing. That was not it. So again, this woman said they have different properties around here. Okay. And so all of their properties had been raided. And she said each time they took half the staff, over half the staff. Okay, so that opened some doors, that it gave me some clarity as to the hostility, right? Because I'm like, you guys are taking this personal. Then I found out that the teenager that was harassing me knew the manager. The manager knew her. So she took it personally and said I was doing it just because she was Latina. Okay, not the case at all. So fast forward couple months later, I believe. And then I'm accused of calling ICE because I think in retaliation, because one thing I've realized since I've been here is that when you're dealing with cluster B personalities, the reason why they're so draining is not just because they switch from demon to demon to demon as if it's a stick shift, but also they are very immature. And it's like, nah, 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 tit for tat, tit for tat, tit for tat, tit for tat, right? This Greenwater has gone so far uh, as to go and collect, quote unquote, information or audio or whatever, with no backup. Like I'm telling them, I have video of this. I have an audio recording because I recorded the phone call. I have photo evidence. I have license plates. But they're saying, well, that's up to you. You have to do this and this. Okay. And so, but let's get back to their staff. And because they brought that up again recently. So recently I've had to deal with them, and the tip of the iceberg, actually what the straw that broke the camel's back was that I had the same tenant who didn't speak any English, but he has a license. I guess, I don't know if he has a license, but it's the same tenant who doesn't speak English, who's tried to run me over, right? And so I'm back. There's 2 sets of parking, rows. And then in the middle, of course, the cars drive through. I go on the side, whether it's on the side next to the apartment or whether it's on the side next to the wall that surrounds our apartments and separates us from the park on the other side. Or on there's a big lot on the other side. It's common sense. This isn't brain science, okay? And so of course I'm going to get out of the way, right? Or make sure that I'm out of the way, because sometimes people just pack up. But I've never seen a driver come out of a parking spot and back all the way up, and he's looking at me now. Mind you, he's looking at me, but at the back window. And I'm waving at him, hey, you need to stop, because I'm right next to another vehicle that's already parked near the apartments, not near the wall where the park is. And he's backing up from the wall where the park is. And it's not an accident. It's literally the second time that he's done it. The first time I did not respond because I wanted to keep my composure and I wanted to keep everything down. But everything has built up, especially, so anyway, let me finish this thought. So so that happens, and I had emailed them, and so they bring up again, because it was tit for tat, so they created a situation which is you strategize, it's street theater. You know what's going to make this person upset because you know that they're dealing with something, or you know it's a phobia, or you know it's a pet peeve, etc., or you know they're going to be traumatized, and that, okay, so you do that setup. So dig it, and so and this was just like a couple days ago, and so and this was right after I had emailed them about this guy trying to run me over. This was, beginning of this month, I believe. Like last week, I believe. And time goes by, and you can tell I could tell by the way she responded to my email, or no, by the way she emailed me, because she was responding to a complaint, that suddenly now everybody's complaining, right? But she's responding to a complaint, and she's saying, this is the second time. And I'm like, so basically what childish people will do is they'll mirror your syntax. They'll mirror your phrases. They'll mirror your gestures. Okay? Because not only are they some of them are trying to be you, but then some of them too are trying to let you know that, yeah, see, I can do this too. So I had to email her back, and I said, this isn't a tit for tat. It's not a tit for tat. Okay? It's just, so so then they brought up the ICE thing again, and I said, and so that situation was, I did not threaten to call ICE at all. Basically, it was retaliation. So these guys are retaliators to keep their tenants quiet. And it's not the first time that I've seen this in action, right? Since I've moved here. There's a lady with her and her family that they were doing this to as well. I just, now I'm going through it. And there was a black male. He dressed himself in all red, black male, and I would go back past his apartment and use all this marijuana, and it wasn't the good kind either. It was just a stinky weed. And because I had to ask, because I was like, every time I come out of my, not every time, but I would smell it, and I'm like, okay. And so sometimes plants smell like that. That's what I learned when I was doing security. That sometimes to get vermin or birds or whatever out, they plant this kind of plant that smells very pungent. But like, kind of, it's not really skunkish or anything, but it's hard to describe, but it's just pungent. And I don't know what it's called. I found it one time, and then I was like, I lost it again. So I thought that was a thing. So I brought it up to the management, and also I have videotaped, I have on video this man. He stopped. Everybody's coming out trying to go for work. They're coming out of their cars and everything else. So again, I just moved here. I don't know. I think maybe this was in September or October, right? I'm still fresh. I'm still raw, right? I'm still crying myself to sleep because, in disbelief, of what I came through. And I see this guy, and I'm the only one that calmed him down. And I don't think I calmed him down. I think that I was the only one that said something to him, and he knew that I was recording him. But he knew that the recording was not going to help anybody. So, because I'm recording, I uploaded it already, so it's still there. Because I was like, oh my god, like, and he was cussing this lady out. He was saying, everybody hates you. Everybody hates you here. That's why we treat you the way we treat you, or something, other stuff. And so I go up to the management, and I say, or the leasing agent, I go up to the office. I say, hey, did you see this out here? Because something told me, just go up to the office and confirm. And I think that spirit wanted me to see where I had come, where I was, where I was. Because I'm like, I feel weird, but I'm trying to ignore it because I want to rest so bad. Oh, you know? And I go up there, she goes, yeah, I saw it. So she saw it. And then she changed it real quick, and she goes, I heard about it. You saw it on your cameras, but you did nothing about it. And I mean, I don't know. So that was the thing. So then so now I'm dealing with this stuff. And so I'm having people, because if somebody's going to go to that lengths to try and retaliate against a woman because they're illegally, basically he was trying to zoom into an exit that everybody was coming out of, because he didn't want to put in the key code into the other way. You dig it? So, I mean, and this is the insanity. And this is what is becoming normal, which is scary. Because I know I can't live like that. I can't and I won't. So, back to the of being falsely accused of calling ICE. So, these guys, it happened after they I think that they were mad because I kept I wasn't doing this like every single day. Hey, what's this? Hey, what's that? But because you didn't do a walkthrough, you didn't introduce me to the property, everything was online, right? Now you when you go in, you're supposed to do a walkthrough, but nobody wanted to do anything, right? And the Latinas were mad because I was talking to the white leasing agent because she was the one that helped me when I, a month ago, right? Because it took a month for us to get here. And so you see what I'm saying? But when you're dealing with people with cluster B personalities, they're grossly immature. They're always taking things personally, right? And it doesn't really matter there was trauma, but if all your apartment complexes have been raided and they're taking your staff and tenants, because these guys have a lot of apartments open, like they're literally, it's like we're not on the same wavelength, right? I have a sink that needs to be fixed. I told them about my stove. They don't want to do anything about it. So that's the kind of people that they are. So they are always doing this tit for tat. So I suspect that it was retaliation that they sent these people. These are our roofers. Later on, they would say, "Oh, these are our roofers. They're working on the roof, and these are the husbands of the women who work here." Well, I was like, "But I said, "Well, they're harassing." I was like, "Because I'm walking my dogs, and they're every time I go it seems like I come around, and there they are. They're not on the roof. They're on foot." One guy kept pacing back and forth, like, and it was crazy making. And I think I was so shocked that I didn't record that, and but I had a pocket knife and that's what I was going to go for because I was like, I don't know this dude. The other guy was weird because he had one of those sun hats on, those military sun hats on, and then he had a snow mask on. Then he had another like like during COVID we had those cloth masks, and then he had black sunglasses. What the fuck are you doing, dude? And this is what I'm talking about. So wouldn't this would trigger anybody with CPTSD who has had to deal with gang stalking from an obsessed ex-roommate for over 10 years. So one of my things that I do when I'm overly stressed out, my nervous system, is I talk out loud. Whatever it is that I'm thinking, I'm talking out loud. So I said, I'm going to fill these up and we're going to get some ice because I was excited that I could make my own butter. And what part of the making your own butter, they always use the videos. So say, okay, you're going to chill this ice. So I thought I was going to be snazzy. And I got these circle, I literally just had that bag. We were just coming back. I'd just gotten back on the property from going to the Dollar Tree about, 2 miles down. So, I mean, like I was walking the babes in the summertime, mind you. But you're gonna it backfired because I was wondering. I was like, why do these guys keep looking at me after they're making me feel as if they're gonna hit me or hurt me or something, and then they keep looking. And then because I'm over at my place now, and then that's when I mentioned it. I wasn't thinking about him. I wasn't thinking about calling ICE. I was trying to refocus because I was going to hurt that man. And that's what I told the leasing agent. I said, no, he was about to get stuck because he kept trying. It felt like he kept trying to be aggressive with me. And I told him to move on. And he told, no, go ahead. And then he'd still do the same thing. And she goes, well, they said sorry. And sorry doesn't cut it. Sorry doesn't cut it. Then this was I would say, because the first month was fine. So within about 4 months, this is what I was dealing with, and I'm sitting here crying because I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And then, because it's so hard. You feel so raw. when you coming out of those types of relationships, because you're like, oh my God, I can't trust anybody, but I don't want to, I know that I can, there are people, I know that I still have my intuition. That's what's gotten me and kept me alive. That's what's gotten me through. So I process, and a lot of times we end up over processing something just to make sure that we're not 5150, right? So the last situation, so here we go with the tit for tat, and the last situation was that I was taking out my dogs, right, my fur babes, and I have a stroller because, like I said, I have a cripple baby. She just had surgery. She almost died when we got here. Okay, right before her birthday, she almost died. Okay, so I'm raw emotionally. I can't, like I said, and I told them, I said, I can't take any more of you guys' crap. I don't know. I'm doing what everybody else is doing, and you guys are getting mad because I know it's because you don't have access, you know? So you're gonna make up whatever it is that you need to make up. You're gonna get anybody to say whatever it is that you need to get them to say, because that's how, whether it be an entity, like I said, or an individual or a family, doesn't matter. If you are if they are cluster B personalities or characters disturbed like that, that's what they do, and they're very good at it. They were like, "Oh, you keep calling us racial slurs. Stop calling me racial slurs." Like, the amnesia is real. So again, because like I said, I match energy. I don't recommend that, but I do match energy. Right? You don't get away with it just because you use coercive control. You don't get away with it because you have flying monkeys. I mean, most of the flying monkeys they use are kids, which is disgusting. You have no morals, you have no integrity to do something like that. And then that kid is stuck doing that to other people. Okay? So I was coming out of my apartment, walking down the path, T-bone, we're coming towards the parking lot where the cars are. It's just, strip. And you can see the parking lot right there. So we intersect with another guy and who has his pity out, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I pick my girls up. He stands there, he waits. I'm like, okay, cool. I pick my fur baby up, and the other one walks because she's not crippled. And and we go the opposite direction. Um we cross the what is it called? We cross the street, the parking lot, over into the next building. Okay, I'm in building 10 there. We crossed over to building 3. I'm thinking, okay, we're good. We're good. We're going to be good. And I look back and there he is. And it wasn't just that he was behind us. What was freaking me out is that he was sorry, hon. Is that he was standing waiting for a response, but he was looking menacing. And I thought, because he had black on, black hat, white shirt, and a black vest over the white shirt, like, bulletproof vest or whatever. And I think it was just one of those weighted exercise vests. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. But and I said, you know what? You can just go the other way if you would, because I already crossed the street. But he stood there. And I mean, he stood there. He stood there for 5 or 10 minutes because I was my session shouldn't be started soon. I'm sorry, guys. Because I had picked the girls up, and we had gotten to where we needed to go. And I thought that I was out of the way, basically. And so it was creepy to me to see this guy. And he's not saying anything. Like, literally, he's acting as if I don't exist. He's looking around from side to side. And then he pulls his phone out and he starts texting. And I'm like, and so I flip. That was it for me. That was literally it for me. So yeah, he was he was every name under the sun, and then some. And then I said, I said, you know what? I'm tired of this, because I had already told them that I'm tired of this. He's like, you got some cuckoo for Cocoa Puff tenants. And I don't tell people over because people don't care whether you're on recovery and trying to heal from narcissistic abuse and gang stalking or not. They don't give a shit. And it's best not to tell them, because if you do, they're going to try and find out what that is, what tactic are used, and they're going to mirror that back to you, right? Because we live in a sick time right now. And so anyway, I end up going, the way that I need to go to get out of his way, and then he comes down. Mind you, I have been recording him for 3 to 5 minutes, just standing there, and me cussing him out, and me calling uh what is that called, non-emergency, figuring out how to call non-emergency, because I'm shaking, I'm trembling, you know and I'm on the camera's still rolling, and then you see him. I said, look, he just passed. But he stood there. But see, this is how childish people are. This is how reactive abuse is, because he knew that he was being imposing. It was dark when I saw it, and I kid you not. So at noon, the hey baby girl, at noon, the the leasing agent emails me, because I had already told him, from here on out, we're going to do, because you're not monitoring your tenants, and I'm tired of feeling afraid like I'm going to lose my life. I didn't tell them that specifically, but I was thinking that. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And because it's out of left field and there's no reason for it. And so she emails me at noon, right? And I can tell that there's so much energy coming off of this email. And I said, whoa, hold up. Right. And because she said, and this, I've heard this before, when you're dealing with cluster B, the other cluster B management that I got to take to court next month, that I get to take to court next month. Right. He told me after one of the security guards broke into my home and stabbed my grand fur baby. Like, this is what I've been dealing with, where people do these insane things, and they know that you're going to sound crazy if you talk about it, but I talk about it anyway because you already think that I'm crazy. You dig it? So it was the same thing. So when I told the management, he goes, well, do you have any proof? And I had contacted the security company, talked to the owner, emailed the owner, and the management got to it. So I guess he talked to the manager, and the manager, and he's trying to get it so that I don't record. And he sees that I'm recording him, because he's tried to talk to me before I can get my phone out, and something says keep going. This is why you listen to your intuition, you phoenixes. Does not matter who says what, why they say it. If they think that you're crazy, they already thought that you were crazy from the beginning, and that's the way that they want to see you. Every little thing that you do is going to be a wrong thing, no matter what, because they need it to be. Okay, whether it is or not. And you don't. It is so many people are monitoring other people's movements to the point of, where they feel entitled and justified to your time. Now, maybe this is the surveillance era, but I'm not going to last here long if that's the case. I'm not going to last. But so here I have this previously from, when I was living in Southern California, and that the security guard broke into my home, stabbed my fur baby, and then I caught him on the way back bragging about it, like openly bragging about it, because he didn't think that I was going to be outside. And so mind you, there's video cameras, and they erase the video cameras. Do you get what I'm talking about? So when this leasing agent was telling me, because this is the same leasing agent, there's 2 of them in there, 3 of them, 4 of them in there. But they came from the same leasing agent that had accused me of taking a picture of a teenager harassing me and repeatedly knocking on my door, because we know what that's called, don't we, Black people? When you knock on somebody's door and run, that's called inward knocking. But she called me the racist. But it was happening again. I felt that it's not exactly the same way, of course, but I felt like it was happening again, because then in her email, she's saying, do not threaten to call the cops on anybody, because you don't want your dogs walking with somebody else's dogs. The whole statement didn't make any sense. And I am so grateful that I've learned to hold my composure because this woman was out of her flipping mind. Number one, you never tell somebody that they can't call the police. I can call the police anything, anyway, and that's what I told her. I was like, you don't have the right or entitlement to tell me when to call the police, when not to call the police, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And her response back to me was to ignore, pretty much anything and then tell me, well, we need you to do investigation. I'm not doing any you guys' job. It's not my job to do the leasing agent's job. You guys hire people and give them housing from your own culture, and then you accuse anybody because you're scared, because you're being a microscope is being a magnifying glass is being held to your culture, and everybody gets to see how you're acting and responding. Me personally, yes, I still have a lot of healing to grow to, because these are the same people who called me the N-word. These are the same people who engaged in workplace mobbing to get me fired so that I would be homeless again. These are the same people who got other people to attack my fur babies, kill my fur baby, two of my fur babies. I mean, so there's a long history here, but yet and still, even though you want me to be, I am not what you say that I am. I am a spiritual being having a human experience and realizing how limited being human is. So it's really hard, because so I'm prefacing this by telling you guys this, what it is that I've been through. So when we go into this reactive abuse, you understand by the examples that I've given you, and possibly you can relate it or correlate it with what you've been through, what you've survived. 'Cause it's taken me a couple days to put this, to actually do this. Because usually when I have a problem, when I'm resistant and hesitant and I procrastinate in posting a podcast, it's because I know it's going to be on point and I know that people are going to retaliate. Right? Because for me, this be moving here, I was quiet. I didn't say anything, but the person had minimized my concerns, called me a racist, then insinuated that I could be a sexual pervert. Then they tried to bully me again through their staff, and when that didn't work, they through their staff, and it backfired because they were paranoid. Because I don't know what this woman has been talking about me since I got there. Right? So I don't know what you guys know. And I told them in an email, I said, I just moved here. I don't know you. I came here for a clean slate. Came here because I said, okay, it's quiet. And because everybody else that I was talking to was nice. Right? And not to mention having a Mexican male gangbanger tell me that he could say the N word all he wanted to, but I couldn't say the B word because I had said it. I've said it multiple times. Matching other people's energy because I get tired of the bullshit. I'm not, I'm taking responsibility for it, but I'm not going to keep apologizing for being for the reaction that I give for the abuse that you're putting me through. It's not going to happen. I had 3 tenants call me the N word or say the N word. One at two, I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. Could hear it on my CCTV. It was so loud. And I go over those later on. I don't go, you know what I mean? Sometimes I get so many notifications. It's like, okay, whatever, because there's a lot of that right in front of the playground. So, but you see what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is that when sometimes other people's fears cause them to be low vibrational, because and then they want to blame and use others as a scapegoat. Right? Like I told you, there was a white lady here. I don't think she lives here anymore, but because I haven't seen her. And then they were saying this, they were treating them the same way, and it was absolutely bizarre that this tenant was allowed. that he knew that he would have the leeway to block traffic. Like he had been there for a while. He had been there for a while. It was because, and I thought it was like a setup because I'm like, okay, you guys are just now, responding to this guy. And then is when I knew. I said, these guys, the maintenance, the management is not going to do anything, right? Because they're afraid of people calling ICE. Because they had half of their, staff in each apartment complex. And then what I realized is that they got properties in the vicinity, like, so you're mad, but you're falsely accusing people, and then you're trying to cover your tracks by creating a situation that then you could say, "Oh, yeah, see that person said that." But this same leasing agent, well, with the gangbanger named Montana with a gun and show. I mean, he made sure I'm going to show you and did it. And it's like I told him, like I said, look here. I said, y'all started with me when I got here. And he goes, well, if they started with you, just tell them to call me. I'm not going to do all that, dude. And he's like, well, I know this because I found out you were, what? You don't own anything here. Why are you talking to me? And this was literally an induced conversation. Because he was like, oh, don't stop hating on Mexican. Mind you, I'm talking to a Mexican and black woman. Do you understand how sick some people are getting and this normalized? Right? So I wanted to preface it, and I don't know how long this is going to go, but I'm going to probably we're already at an hour, and I didn't realize I had needed to get all that out. But again, I just relate even as a transformational coach, there you still are going to be in situations, and I've had the tools. Like I've been at bay for, kept them at bay for quite a long time. But there's some people who they get off on the drama and they don't leave well enough alone. That's why I say that, they're a cluster B cocktail, because usually if somebody is part of that cocktail of being a cluster B personality is borderline personality, right? Okay. You may have a different experience. My experience has been that you shift gears, like, you're shifting the stick, and here goes, why did that person say? Because they'll tell you themselves. I keep ruminating over what happened over and over and over and over again and getting mad at that person. I like you, I hate you, I want to kill you. I've expressed that. I've experienced that. Again, so my thing is just to let you guys know, if it's going to happen, and not to beat yourself up. Like own your stuff, but not to beat yourself up. And if you need to, get legal representation. Your blessings are in your ashes, Phoenixes. Rise. Phoenixes are rising. Okay, Phoenixes are rising. Sorry about that. So I had already started and I hadn't even recorded, y'all. And mind you, this is the second day that I've been working on this and pondering it for a total of 3 days previously. So if you are still here with me, I bless you. Thank you so much. Do not be afraid to hit the like or the subscribe or share this content so we can get out to more of our Phoenixes that know that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that there are others who have gone through what they've gone through, and there is a solution and there is a community out here. And my name is Coach T. So let's get into it. And just keep in mind what I've been telling you guys, what I told you guys at the beginning. Okay. What I just got through experiencing. The reason why I'm doing, because it was a prime example. It was like, oh my God, like you guys are really, only this is with an institution, right? This is with housing. And so just go back and compare, and compare it to your own life too, and what you've gone through, because you don't always have to be in you don't have to be in a relationship, an intimate relationship, or have a husband or a wife or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, etc. I mean, it can be institutions, it can be your workplace, it can be your apartment complex. We see that when we hear that, right? So don't just, keep blinders just on, don't keep blinders on. Because that way you're more prepared and you have more tools in your arsenal to be able to play chess and not checkers. Okay, so let's get into it. Reactive abuse is not abuse. It is predictable stress response that occurs after prolonged exposure to coercion, intimidation, gaslighting, or instability. The person under pressure eventually reacts emotionally, and that reaction is then used to rewrite the entire narrative. The harm isn't just what happens to the person, it's how the story gets flipped afterwards. Okay? So, again, just to refresh, in my situation, this person, I've walked around this person. I didn't realize this until after everything had happened and I'd already called or emailed, because I only deal with them in email because they've created a hostile environment and they don't want me coming up to the office in the first place. Okay. So because tried bullying me. So this is staff members who have already used coercive control, intimidation, gaslighting, and bullying. So, it's like, and everything keeps backfiring on them and they don't know what to do with themselves. So they will create what I call street theater. It's a term from gang stalking. And it's where they create a situation and that causes reactive abuse, or that causes you to be reactionary. And then the cluster B will claim abuse. Dig it? They're claiming that they're being abused because you have reacted. Okay. So let's continue. Just keep that in mind. Chronic provocation is repeated. Okay. This is where we're going to explain the definition of chronic provocation. So what it is. Chronic provocation is repeated low grade or high grade stress applied over time with the goal of destabilizing someone emotionally. This is not a single argument, but what it is constant boundary pushing, repeated mischaracterization, ongoing ambiguity. Did that really happen? Or I think that, you're mistaken, or we can't confirm or deny any of that. It doesn't seem like something we would do or that person or blah, blah, blah would do. Okay. Pardon me. Inconsistent rules or expectations. Experience that. Persistent hoovering, surveillance, or baiting, right? Which is what it would react. That's basically what they're doing. They're baiting you into a reaction. So this is knowing what it is matters, because you can identify now that your nervous system cannot stay regulated indefinitely under constant threat or confusion, right? Eventually the body will react and sometimes it will shut down. That's that heaviness in the legs, right? It's the I know I scream. If and anytime when I could start talking out loud to myself or to whoever, my nervous system says we're done with the craziness. And that is exactly what it is, because I'm done with dealing with other people's insanity, especially cluster B personalities and those with cluster B characteristics. So, if pressure is ongoing, the reaction is not evidence of instability on your part. It's evidence that the pressure worked, that the pressure that they applied to you by needling you, by baiting you, by creating a hostile environment, and then by microaggressions, by coercive control. Or coercion in general is I'm threatening you, but I'm not saying anything to you, but my body language speaks as if I'm going to do something to you. This is the next day now, so I've walked my dogs this afternoon, my fur babes, and there was two guys who came running. Saw one guy and they were running as fast as they could down my way, and I'm thinking, okay, are you gonna move or do I gotta move out of the way? And so I'm looking and I'm like okay, took my camera out just in case I needed to record something, right? Because this place has already been deemed a hostile um environment for me and my babes, right? So I mean, everything was well. They were just racing for the bus, and that was it. But now my nerves were shaken up. Okay, so it happens. It happens. So because and it was pressure. And so again, I had to come back in, do my prayers, do my meditation, do my deep breathing, box breathing, 4, 8, 6, breathe in 4, breathe out, I'll hold for 4, breathe it out 4 or a little longer, and then do the 6 and then do the 8, whatever, however you want to do it. Okay. And and then get back on track. But when your body does not feel like dealing with anybody else's craziness, and they know that. And so that's why they keep pushing you. But if I've been doing really good and on ignoring it for the most part. But again, when I get triggered or my body is keeping score and then it brings up something, then I have that to deal with, right? And then we don't walk around telling people, "Hey, I got CPTSD. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I've survived gang stalking. I've survived, such and such." We don't go around telling people that because people don't care and people might use it against us. You see? So let's go on to number 2. Hey, Phoenixes are rising. For those of you who stuck in, thank you so much. Do not feel afraid. Be afraid to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates and courses and workshops and just a daily motivation and even some songs. We're going to get into number 2. The reaction becomes the evidence. All right. When the targeted person finally reacts, where they raise their voice, cries, asserts forcefully, has to set a hard, forceful boundary because the perpetrator isn't listening to them, or they seek outside help. That moment is isolated and treated as the entire truth. Now, remember, I say cluster B cocktail because you have multiple demons working inside of one person. It is a flop house. That person becomes a trap house, a flop house for demonic entities, right? One of those demonic entities has a black and white thinking. If you're not for me, you're against me, right? There is no grays. There's like, I'm not for that particular belief system, but I can back you over here because that resonates with me more. They don't do that. They say, okay, anytime you say no, how dare you? And they go to breaking you down and trying to get revenge, right? You don't want to go out with me tonight and I'm ready to go out, but you want to sit there and sleep? Well, how dare you? Why are you even my friend? Okay. There's no understanding. There's no compassion because they don't have the ability to be that way. Okay. Everyone that came before it is erased. So again, when the targeted person finally reacts, raises their voice, cries, asserts forcefully, sets a hard boundary, or seeks help outside, that moment is isolated and treated as the entire truth because of black and white thinking by the cluster B personality. It's all or nothing. Everything that came before now is erased. Okay. So common distortions are, see how emotional they are? Well, they came out of nowhere. They're overreacting again. I told you they're the problem, right? So this reframes survival behavior as aggression and self-protection as danger. A reaction without context is not truth. It's a cut scene from a much longer story. So, two things on this point. As a filmmaker, I love post-production because I love I can pay attention to detail and I can get patterns. And I like working from a systemic structure. Um, so when I'm doing in post, and the way that you cut a scene, it depends on what emotion you're trying to extract from the audience, right? So if I cut out the scenes that are showing the domestic violence, that are showing the quiet escape, and that are showing, how the person is coming up now, right? There could be a montage, it could be, a series of scenes and episodes. But if I cut that, the audience doesn't know that the reason why this woman is now lashing out at this man is because, or this woman is lashing out at her wife or husband, or male is lashing out at his girlfriend or boyfriend, right? They don't know that the reason why they're so hysterical and they're pointing a gun at them or they're pointing a knife or something to protect themselves is because of what they already went through, right? So when you're dealing with people, for me, I came into a new area with people who had preconceived notions of me already, unfortunately, because of my old manager and because of what they were involved in, right? So they couldn't wait to stereotype me. They couldn't wait, especially when they realized that I, because I have survived that, I came here to rest. My nervous system is tapped out. Okay. So they were they they had expectations because they don't care about anything that I've been through. Their whole point was not to get to know me. And then really when you come into a new area, you may have somebody who says, "Hey, hi, whatever, whatever, whatever," right? And I say, "Okay, hi, hi, hi," and then I go about my business, right? I'm also on the spectrum. So I don't really want to engage with anybody, and that's my right, right? But when people see that as you as you being selfish in some way or they take offense to that, then they start to retaliate. Okay. So but you wouldn't but again, going back to the cutting scenes of the episodes or of the domestic violence, the abuse, the person having to escape in the wee hours of the morning time, right? When we saw that with the remake of The Invisible Man, and he was using that suit to get to her, et cetera, et cetera. You would think that she's just plumb batshit crazy, right? Um, and then the other thing, the frame, so and that is the survival behavior, right? Because we just try and go about our business, but people lately, it's like a virus that people are pushing themselves on others, especially those who don't want to interact, right? Especially on autistic folks, especially on neurodivergent folks, right? People who are on the spectrum, they want to force us to entertain them, right? Even at our lowest. And that's not okay. All right. So, yes, so a reaction without context is not truth. It's a cut scene from a much longer story. All right, number 3, erasure of the original behavior. Once the reaction occurs, the original actions that caused it are no longer discussed, investigated, or acknowledged. They're erased. This includes threats, harassment, racial or gender biased based hostility, unequal enforcement or rules, intimidation or stalking, weaponization of authority. Okay. And I told you about the apartment complex, about the leasing office, but not only that, it trickles. What I've realized being here is that it trickles downhill, right? So whatever she's telling, she's group texting. And then you got the kids involved. Some people, I had kids that, well, because their parents don't like me or nobody wants to, and that's fine. I've only been here for 6 months. I don't like you. I don't like anybody who's toxic. I don't like anybody who's a sex offender. I don't like anybody who believes that they have an entitlement to my time, my energy, or my life. So I'm okay with that. But the difference between people like us and then the people like that are cluster B personalities is that they want to make you pay for the smallest infraction. They want to make you pay, right? And that's how my gang stalking actually started, because of a gang in California, in Northern California, that ran that whole city. You know, and they were high on the hog, right? So I don't want to get into the politics of it, but that's usually, it's a weaponization of authority. So for with my situation, they weaponized, oh well, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. But here's the thing, you have to by law, right? So anyway, the focus shifts entirely to your tone, how you reacted emotionally, and how you displayed emotions, how it looked to others, right? Because they're all about prestige, they're all about status, they're all about, well, and really, especially when it comes to Black people, I've noticed that other people who are under the POC agenda, or umbrella, I should say, this intersectionality stuff, but other people who are POC especially will use stereotypes against Black people, knowing the traumatic history, the generational trauma, knowing CPTSD exists, knowing PTSD exists, right? So they're weaponizing our history against us, but using it when it's convenient for them to all of a sudden cry racism, right? So this erasure protects the system or aggressor and isolates the person who reacted. Okay. And that's what it does. And I've noticed that every single time. Unfortunately, there are people, I think with the influx of other folks, like we're seeing in Minnesota, right? That they built up a whole city and network and system for themselves. They did the same. They've been doing the same thing in California, and all the West Coast to the Southwest coast. Those Southwest states. So it's really hard because because they'll say buzzwords like, oh, well, you should know how it feels, except, well, that's an abusive statement. Why should I know how it feels? And why should you just believe that I should accept it and drop my healing in order for you to go and rescue you when you didn't do that for me? Right. So that's a little bit off, but I mean, it's along the same lines. So when accountability disappears upstream, it reappears downstream on the person least protected. And that's where you know, unfortunately, because we tell the truth. Okay. We're a part of a group that tells the truth. When you're dealing with gang stalkers, when you're dealing with flying monkeys, when you're dealing with cluster B people, they don't tell the truth. They lie. And they lie. They're pathological liars, many of them, right? It's a way of life. That's how they get where they are, right? They're the bottom feeders. And so they're always, throwing other people under the bus after they've drained them sometimes and playing, victim. It's that Darvo, right? Um, so that's number 3. As I said, so it trickles downstream. So and this goes into transference. So even though I'm dealing with an apartment complex, management who is absolutely toxic, who is racist, who is, I think, even homophobic, and that they allow, they're not enforcing their tenants not to call me the N-word. I've been called the N-word 3 times since I've been here. I've been here for 6 months, right? Not only that, but they're allowing tenants to get payback. Even their own staff are retaliating, right? Because they're saying that I have wounded them. So when you can, and really here, this is what I thought the other night. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter whether it's not going to matter whether you're telling the truth or not, because another thing with cluster B personalities, they shut everything down. I mean, it's like it's darkness, right? And I've seen, when I've dealt with cluster B groups, like with gang stalkers or hostile environments, when you look at the kids have nothing going for them. I mean, they have nothing going for them. They're bitter. It's like, because whatever the adults have, it's being transferred down to the kid, of course, right? And they're absorbing that. And then they're lashing out on behalf of their parent, which is absolutely sad, because depending on how they don't know that they have to unlearn that, right? So that goes there. The kid may not be a narcissist or a psychopath or a cluster B personality in general, but they exhibit those characteristics, right? Which many people do, because, monkey see, monkey do. You're mirroring a toxic behavior, right? Not very few people who grow up in dysfunction will choose uh will choose like, I watched Charles Ingalls, or, you know what I mean, something to give to be the father that I didn't have, right? I watched Good Times to see what it's like to grow up in a Black family, because I didn't know, you know what I mean? I felt like I was mixed, and I am mixed race, but I didn't grow up with any cultural relevance. There was no pride in there. There was, everybody literally in my family was acting like a slave and a coward. But it's not a reflection of me, and I didn't, like, purposely consciously go against it. It just never was my personality. And I think that's why my parents were like, hey, everybody in my family was like, there's something wrong with you. No, there's everything right with me. There's everything wrong with you. And that's why I've been born into this time. So, you know, so anyway, yeah, it unfortunately, because we tell the truth. Phew. And because they take up such negative space, there's coercive control and then there's coercion. Coercion is the threat of when somebody threatens, and I just had this tonight when I finished, or when I first initially went out to go and walk my fur babes, where a Latina woman, I don't know what I heard, but I could feel this hostility from her. So I stood out there because you're not going to go up behind me. I don't know what you're doing, but I saw these girls like to hide in the bushes, and it's creepy. And I'm not going to get into their whatever it is that they have going on, but it was weird. I know the first time that I saw one of the little girls do it, and I was like, like that stalker behavior. It was like she was looking at me, and then when I caught her, she was offended. And I was like, okay, so are you being trained or what? What's going on? So it was weird behavior. And so I just assumed that this was the mother or somebody of this, this toxic woman who was out here. And so I stood right, I didn't stand next to her, but I stood in the same, and I just looked because I was like, what are you looking? The girls had already left, and she just kept staring. And it's more hostile it became. And I was like, okay, like what's going on? you know and then finally when I went ahead, and the girls caught up, one of my fur babies caught up with me. Of course, she's crippled, so she's not gonna be there right away, and I was giving her time. And so, and I was trying to see what the lady was looking at, and she 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 went off, and she was pissed, like like I had a feeling that it was supposed to go the other way around, right? So that's coercion, right? Where I'm emanating a threat to you. I'm emanating the energy of violence because I want to trigger you, right? Now, coercive control is doing these microaggressions that add up to make sure that you don't move forward, or you don't move in a direction that you're supposed to go, that would be away from them, especially, so that you would no longer be a source or no longer be a supply. And what I found today, in this day and age, is that it's very rancid. Like, you have people who are extremely desperate. I still feel energy vampires or cluster B personalities still trying to feed off of me. I still feel it. And I feel the incubus and the succubus. I've had them try and lodge in themselves into chakras, which a chakra corresponds with an organ. So it may be my ovaries. It may be, if you're getting an incubi or a succubi. Doesn't matter, gay, lesbian, or straight. Does not matter. I had a woman who was down low in the closet, right, having full relationships with men and enjoying it, but thought that, I guess she assumed that I was going to be one of those black women or people who would go cuckoo for Latina puffs, and I don't. So so I'm not like that. If your spirit is off, if your mind is off, if your soul is fragmented, I am not the one for you, and you are not the one for me. But again, so yeah, they don't want you. So it's and that was that coercion from this woman too, right? So because she was like, no, you're my target, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to do witchcraft so that you don't have relationships. I'm going to do witchcraft so that, to mess up your cycles. I mean, I have had some cuckoo for Cocoa Puff people out there, cluster bees out there. And I mean, I think, here's the thing. Some of us are going to drive out the real wackadoodles, as my belated mother used to say, rest in peace, Ma, as she used to say, because the norm doesn't phase us. Their normal tactics don't phase us, you know? Like, and it's weird because I keep running into, so that's how they'll it'll increase and intensify. you know, like you, especially with technology and like you know, the little gangbanger was telling me I can take a picture of you and I can group text 80 people, so he was admitting to gang stalking. You know, I can text 80 people and they'll all come after you, and I was like, well, you know, so be it, so be it, but you're not going to say the n word in any variation to me and get away with it. It's not going to happen. So anyway. So when accountability disappears upstream, it reappears downstream on the person least protected. So let's go to number 4, labeling the reactor as unstable or high conflict. And oh my gosh, that was like a huge thing when I was working in security and in California. Okay. It was picture the population percentage in California. Okay. And they love when they were tired of you, when they knew that they couldn't have, and this was the thing, because um, it was a sexist culture, because you had so many foreigners who were in, you know, regardless, I'm not trying to be political, but you did. It's immature to think that it's that when you have these influx of people who are coming in and they don't have to speak English, they don't have to adhere to any rules but what their countrymen do, right? So they pass that along. And if you come from a sexist culture, that a country where they just recently, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, where they passed a law for femicide. So though they came over here and started taking it out on black women, in my humble opinion, allegedly, I guess. And so when they're not listening, then they have a system. And I've heard about this before. So when I was working in security, they always had a system of isolation. It's like, well, we don't like that person. Why? Because you can't have sex with me, because you can't manipulate me, because I'm going to tell the truth no matter what kind of coercive control or coercion or threats or whatever write-ups you're going to give me. I mean, I remember I had them writing me up for 3 months, and that was just, had no legal right. But when you're dealing, and I could have like got millions of dollars, it was a multi-million dollar case, but I kept being, because I had all the proof in the world, but I kept being told that I didn't have a case when I did. And I think that that was some manipulation being done, right? And I got stories for days, you guys. But yeah, so number 4, labeling the reactor as unstable or high conflicts. Again, just within my job, they're like, oh, you're not respecting authority. You're causing, conflict. And this is their template. And it doesn't, and I'm now that I'm in another state and around the same types of people and the same culture, it's the same. They do the same shit, and it's unfortunate. Once someone reacts, they are assigned an identity rather than addressed as a person responding to circumstances. So here are some common labels: unstable, high conflict, difficult, aggressive, dramatic, problematic. Okay. Especially if you're a black female. Boy, even, black men come out the woodworks with this. I mean, it doesn't, and really, narcissism is a spirit. It's a demonic, it's a disembodied human fragmented spirit, aka demon. And they got a cluster of demons. They're a flop house, as I've said, for demonic activity. So these labels do what? They shut down credibility, they justify punishment or exclusion, they discourage others from listening. Once labeled, everything they do is filtered through the lens, even calm or reasonable behavior. Okay. And that's what was sticking, has always stuck out to me, right? Is that you're doing the mature thing. The more you do the mature thing, the more you bring up a reasonable resolution to the conflict, the more you point out to them and you mirror back to them not who they want you to see, but what they really are. And that's embarrassing. But they're going to hide within being a leasing agent, within being a tenant, within, being Latino, within being, black, or male, or, LGBTQ, etc. Okay. So label is not a diagnosis, it is a control mechanism, right? So I know when I was growing up, I was like, I don't want to be, when I first came out, I was like, okay, lesbian, because that's like, okay, whatever, whatever. And then, but people they kept telling me, like literally kept telling me you're bisexual. It's like, well, no, I'm not. I'm not that kind of bi. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between being sexually assaulted and actually being bisexual. You see what I'm saying? There's the difference also between um being lesbian and being playing it safe, right? Which is why people come out later, because we can do anything for a little while in some cases if we need to protect ourselves. Because I don't know, I'm Generation X, and I remember growing up where you had some men didn't like it if you weren't bisexual, so they felt that they had to tell you about it. So anyway, so let's get all right. So let's go on to 5, power asymmetry, often unspoken. Reactive abuse almost always occurs in situations where one party has more power, such as institutions versus individuals, Greenwater versus Coach T, right? Managers versus tenants slash employees, parents versus children, groups versus isolated individuals. The person with power sets the narrative, decides what counts as evidence, and controls the consequences. When power is uneven, reactions are punished with provocations, and while provocations are ignored. One more time. When power is uneven, reactions are punished while provocations are ignored. Context without power analysis is incomplete, right? And so when I had confronted them through email, the Greenwater through email, and let them know, and I couldn't believe that they were like okay with somebody literally brandishing a firearm and saying that they could call me the N-word all they wanted, because that's what this was about, right? And the excuse was, oh, those are my peoples. That's how he talked to me. Those are my peoples. As if I'm not standing there as a black woman. And then he had to say, you didn't know my age before but now you said, well, I found out what your age was. Well, how did you find out what my age was? What were you listening to? Who introduced you to me? You see what I'm saying? A lot of times you give, when cluster B personalities don't have a pot to piss in, and they've been outed, and they know that they don't have a substantial argument, they will go to looking up information on you, right? And I did this facilitated the session the other night, as a matter of fact, about leaving quietly, and the less is more, and I don't tell anybody about me, and that's why people are annoyed, right? It's like, well, that's why, oh, I know why people don't like you. Yeah, because I'm not giving you any information to use as ammo. And any information that you get, I know, if for a leasing agent, and then to have other tenants, be calling me. I literally had a tenant's kids with my phone number. I didn't give them my phone number. And they were I was walking and it was weird because I was walking past the girls, and I stopped because the dude, one of the young boys, was talking to another young boy, telling him, well, go ahead and call him. He was like, well, I don't want her to know it was me. And he looks at me, and then he calls. So you're letting me know that Alice is your mom's, this is a whole big thing. So I'm like, oh my God. I was asking in prayer and meditation, like, what is really going on? Like, are they just letting each other, like, are they, because they can't be dehydrated necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm still asking questions, you guys. But I've had the most bizarre, because again, hi Nubian. Sorry, my fur baby is passing. Go ahead, mama. Because because the norm does not affect me, right? And so and this just shows how desperate cluster B personalities are to dominate and to control, right? You've called me the N-word, you've called me fat, you've called me or you've excluded me from working, or you've harassed me and got me to quit my job, or you know what I mean, you've taken my housing, you've made me homeless. All of that stuff I've conquered over the last 10 years. And so, the way people I think are thinking of it now, it's like, well, we're going to have to get rid of you the old fashioned way. And it's like, but you don't have the right to do anything to anybody, you know? But that's how they figure things. That's how women, who are leaving that's what we say. You got to sneak out because they snap when they realize they're not going to have control over you, when they realize that you're still going to talk and you're still going to say what's true, you're going to speak your truth, because no human, no being has the right to withhold a birthright from somebody else while demanding other people, especially, respect them and their right to be here. You see? Nobody has that right. It doesn't matter whether you are demonically aligned, or whether you are aligned with the Most High Creator. There are rules, there are laws, and these people have been tyrants over a population for a long time. You know, so let me see. Think we can. Okay, so number 6, gaslighting. Oh my gosh. Gaslighting is the repeated invalidation of someone's lived experience, perception, or memory, especially after they raise concerns. I've even had this with counselors, which is why I'm just like, so here's some examples. That didn't happen, or you're misinterpreting it. I think you're too sensitive. I think, the brain, when you've been under a lot of stress, kind of tries to tie things in that don't really correlate, right? Those are things that people say. You're imagining intent, right? Gaslighting delays reaction by forcing self-doubt until the pressure becomes unbearable. Gaslighting doesn't stop reactions, it postpones them and intensifies the fallout. So yeah, the gaslighting is self-explanatory, and many of us have been gaslit all our lives because we're truth tellers, and because we're on the spectrum, we're going to say what needs to be said, and a lot of folks don't like that. 7, why reactive abuse is so effective and dangerous. Reactive abuse works because systems prefer calm appearances over truth. Emotional reactions are easy to point out. Documentation often favors authority, and trauma responses look messy in public. The result, the person harmed becomes the person managed, warned, or punished, or all the above. All right, phoenixes are rising. I'm so glad that you stayed this far. If you downloaded this, keep it, share it. Do not repost it without permission. Please and thank you. But in closing, let me say this. The presence of a reaction does not prove abuse. The presence of chronic provocation explains it. And if someone had to react to be seen, the harm started long before the reaction. All right? So I just want you guys to know that your blessings are in your ashes, and that everything, you're not crazy, that hopefully me sharing my story and giving you some definitions adds to the arsenal and makes you gives you some type of peace, because sometimes that's all we have. Sometimes all we have is knowledge. When we know ourselves, it makes it makes it harder for them to crush us like they want to, right? But doesn't keep them from trying, because they are what they are, right? A, 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 a snake is still going to slither on its belly, whether it wants to or not, whether it learned how to walk or sidewind or what, you know what I mean? It's still going to be what it is, right? A bear is still a bear, right? A predator is still a predator. That it is. You are still a chosen one of the divine Most High God. And they can't stand that because they can't feel what you feel. But unless they are literally tethering a tentacle, a toxic thread or cord, or whatever kind of voodoo doll or boogity doll that these guys, get into, some of them. Not all, cluster B personalities are into witchcraft. So it's depending on setting and upbringing and whatnot and culture. But the more that you know yourself and the more that you become aware of not just what is in the physical, but what is in the spiritual, the more formidable that you're going to be, right? Because you're going to meet cluster Bs as long as you don't dim your light. They want that light, right? I've been around people who are so damn negative, and the only thing, they can't say anything nice to you. They always have to be condescending. That's how you know you're dealing with the cluster B personality, that they will come up with a little snide comment, right? To make sure that you know that you're beneath them, right? But it's all a joke. That's just called sarcasm. No, sir, no, ma'am, right? Okay, so again, Phoenixes, make sure that you sign up for March 14th at 10 a.m. for From Sealed to Healed, and make it's only $97. Go to my YouTube channel. I have some promo videos that are explaining why it's only $97, because a lot of people, you have to invest in yourself. You have to want to invest in yourself. So I'm never going to make something for free. If you have, because when I realized that was learned helplessness, that was a part of learned helplessness. So I'm not going to give anything for free, but I am not going to also, I'm not trying to make, a million billion bucks off of anything. What I'm desire to do is to get the word out there and to get you guys to a point where you are unshakable, right? Where you're Neo in the Matrix, right? Okay. So, all the information is in the description. Again, like, subscribe, and share. And remember, from the ashes, we rise. From the soul, we lead. This is Coach T, and I love you.